Re:Zero Arc 3 Interlude 1. This is the continuation after episode 25 director's cut. That's all this story is about. The dragon carriage made a quiet rattling sound as it advanced down the road. It was under divine protection, most signs of rattling or shaking couldn't be felt at all. Subaru entrusted his body to this calmness. Thinking back on his experiences, it was probably the first time he had ridden in such a still carriage. If he was forced to choose, the time when they headed towards the capital from the Roswell mansion was the best, but during that due to his own blunder he had changed it into a harsh ride, and so there weren't any moments to enjoy the passage. But in the end everything had turned out okay since then, so he couldn't say that it was a bad experience. And after the second time he was stuck going to the Roswell territory from the capsule because of the entanglement with the witches' cult, so he definitely wasn't calm during that time. As a result, this was truly the first time that Subaru could ride a dragon carriage without straying thoughts or impatience. Well, that being said.
Petra, aren't you a little close? I don't think so. Is there something wrong, Subaru? Petra, the little girl who was looking up at Subaru with round eyes and reddish-brown hair.
She was sitting to his left, and ever since their departure she had been grabbing his hand, and sticking close to him. At first he had thought it must have been because of fear, but up until now she had kept hold to his hand with a big smile. I feel like a dad. My father's intuition that I didn't know I had is bubbling up. Up until now Oni-chan was being really sly. This is fine, right? We still have plenty of time until we reach the capital. Petra. Up until now, was different.
See, I had a really important thing to talk about with Subaru.
I wasn't trying to keep him for myself, or anything.
Petra's statement made Amelia even more flustered. She didn't understand the situation completely, but Petra didn't look like she truly hated Amelia. It was most likely just an extension of their playful relationship, but to Amelia, who was not used to dealing with children, it was not a laughing matter. Amelia-tan, don't take it too seriously.
It's a child talking here. You have to turn it away with a smile or else. There's no way I could cheat like that just because they are a child.
Moo, you're still making fun of me. Amelia pressed together her lips in a dissatisfied pout, and Subaru laughed while lightly saying sorry. Seeing this, Petra pulled on his sleeve in complaint, so he had to talk to her as well. Surrounded by cute girls on both sides, Subaru was blessed with a development that was rare for him. Well, one of them was deferring a confession from him, and from the other he could expect something in 3 years. At the moment, Subaru and company were riding on a dragon carriage that was advancing down the Refaus highway, heading towards the capital. It was a different carriage than the one that had been set with magic or explosives, and the driver was a man working for the Young Persons Association. Inside was Subaru, Amelia, and the kids. At first they had worried about the circumstances and tried to leave Subaru and Amelia alone, but in the end Petra had wedged herself in spiritedly. Since she was butting in on their time, Subaru obviously had a complaint. Well, it was going to be like that, but in reality Petra's cutting in was also helpful in a way.
At any rate, it was after he had frequently declared those extremely embarrassing words.
Trying to be cool, he had told Amelia that he would wait for a reply to the confession, but Subaru's flames of love were burning vigorously, and with a sense of accomplishment that came from leading everything to a close, he was unable to apply the brakes. At the worst, he would ask for compensation more than the lap pillow. Wow, I was seriously in trouble. After going that far to show off, there's a limit to not choosing.
TL not sure about this sentence. What? I'm talking about Petra helping me out.
Oh, speaking of which, you kept the promise not to leave Amelia-tan alone, didn't you? Great, good job. A hair. Tenderly patting the head of the little girl who was looking up at him, Subaru expressed his twofold thanks to her. If she or the other kids had let go of Amelia's hand, she would most likely have once again forced herself and ended up injured. That it didn't end up like that, and that Subaru could see the fruits of his labor, was thanks to nothing else but the kids and the other people that had helped him.
He was really blessed with his surroundings. Too blessed.
Now that things have calmed down, it seems like I have to thank way too many people. From the Crush faction there was Crush herself, and then Ferris, and of course Wilhelm. From the Anastasia faction it was annoying but Julius and then everyone in the mercenary group. And in the background, while it was easy to forget, he had to speak to Russell, and he had also promised to give him the cell phone.
It was regrettable that he would end up tricking Russell, but thinking of the fortune that was brought, he would give it to him while pretending not to know.
Sorry.
There's so many things I have to think about.
First, there was an inevitable questioning from Roswell from the uproar that happened this time. On top of that, he would need to talk with Anastasia and Crush
about how much to report of the white whale subjugation and sloth subjugation.
Especially with the white whale, if he was to believe Crush's words, then Subaru would also get some achievements from this. He wasn't lusting after honor and prestige, but if Subaru's reputation would go up even by a little, but it would definitely help Emilia and the Emilia faction.
Even if he was perceived as shameless, he wanted to assertively aim for that.
As he continued to realize many things, there was the protection and cleanup of the village.
The future seemed full of difficulties.
Also, before that, there was another mountain that Subaru had to climb.
Emilia Tan. I have a really important thing to talk to you about, but... Yes, what is it?
Emilia had put one finger in her silver hair, and she slowly turned her neck to face Subaru.
Her bluish-purple eyes were full of trust, and seeing them, Subaru was able to feel that his actions had been worth it.
However, he was still scared when he thought of how those eyes would react to what he would say next. Subaru had a problem that he could not avoid, that he needed to tell Emilia, that was naturally about Rem.
If he were speaking of people he needed to thank, in this time's loop there was not a single existence who had so wholeheartedly helped him than Rem.
Thanks to her deep love and dedication, Subaru, she had kindly healed his heart that was once broken, and she had called back to him a resolve to stand back up and fight against fate. If there hadn't been that moment, Subaru would not have been standing here right now. Were it not for her existence, he would never have been able to escape from the hell of giving up. Rem had stayed by his side and continued to support him during his most bitter and painful moment.
Towards her, who had done all of this for him, Subaru held the deepest affection and wonder. Up until now, Subaru had believed that his thoughts were earnestly focused on only one person.
In reality, to Subaru the person on his mind was also Emilia and no one else. However, the existence of Rem, while leaving his affection towards Emilia unchanging, had become just as large to him and remained in his heart. And so Subaru made a clear choice. It may be unsightly to become serious all of a sudden, but since he was unable to give up on his thoughts towards either party, he decided to take both Emilia and Rem. Also, he had already received permission from Rem for this insolent idea. All that was left with this problem was persuading Emilia, and he had been told by Rem to talk to her together, but if I depend on Rem up until that point, I'd be the worst of the worst.
Even if he had created the chance for Rem to also join in on the conversation, it was Subaru's responsibility to begin speaking about it.
He was scheming to receive the love of two girls, so it was a hurdle that he had to overcome. Taking a breath, he chose his words while feeling his heart throbbing quickly. His line of sight was swimming around to face forward, and looked at Emilia.
She was staring back at him. Super cute.
It's something that is really hard to talk about, but I would like you to hear me out. Of course, I think that I'll need to report this to her sister eventually as well, but
first, I wanted to tell you. Yes?
In hesitation, Subaru had made an unnecessary introduction, confusing Emilia. Agonizing over his weakness of putting it off like this, Subaru desperately racked his brains for words. His head was put into full gear, the fastest it had been during these past few days. He worked his synapse so hard it seemed like sparks would occur, and tried to find the best response.
Actually, it's about Rem.
Rem is, she.
To me. You know?
And so, by that confession I was really acting for myself, but sweat slowly spread over his forehead as Subaru started to speak. It seemed like he was already trying for some sort of excuse, but he thought that Emilia, who was good at guessing, would understand with him saying just this much. In front of Subaru, who was covered in sweat, Emilia raised her hand and said, "Wait."
Subaru, calm down. I lost track of what you were trying to say. I understand that you are trying your best to explain it. You're a good kid, so slow down. Saying it's because I'm a good kid, it feels like my rating went down. No, I'm not being manly. I'll say it cleanly.
So. Actually, Rem also said that she loved me, so since Emilia Tan also likes me.
You'll both be mine, how should I put it? Entrusting himself to the momentum, he made a two-timing declaration. Thinking back to his statement just now, he drew back considerably.
Of course, Emilia's response would be similar to that, or she would probably look at him with eyes of disappointment and scorn. After imagining such a pessimistic situation, Subaru nervously looked at her, and Emilia's response was completely different from Subaru's imagination.
She frowned at his words, and stayed quiet while putting a finger to her lips in deep thought.
Scrutinizing his declaration, she was thinking of a proper punishment to give to him. It wasn't a light atmosphere like that.
Subaru.
Yes. After his name was called, Subaru turned to face Emilia directly. She also faced directly towards his, gaze filled with resolution. However, her eyes were full of bewilderment, and Subaru was unable to understand her reaction. And then, the following words completely went beyond Subaru's comprehension.
Who is Rem?
Re-Zero Arc 3 Interlude 2, let's eat.
In the swaying dragon carriage, Rem was only thinking of him.
Suddenly hearing someone calling her name, Rem softly lifted her face and narrowed her eyes against the bright radiance of the sun. She gazed at the entourage of dragon carriages ahead.
Inside them were the wounded soldiers of the battle with the white whale. All in all, only their most urgent wounds had been treated, and more than a few of them were still seriously injured. Yet, despite their pain, the corners of their lips revealed only the sense of accomplishment for having fulfilled a long-cherished dream.
After carrying this dream for so many years, to see it finally realized meant more to them than injury or death.
Having achieved what they set out to do, they now ride towards the capital on their triumphant return.
Taking all this into her sight, Rem hated herself for not being able to hold back the pain inside her heart. Crush, you look anxious, Rem.
Are you still worrying about him? Rem, Crush-sama. Glancing towards the voice, it was Crush sitting beside her.
Wrapped in light bandages, it was commendable how Rem revealed no signs of the seriousness of her injuries, but it was impossible to conceal her depleted stamina. The fact that they rode in a carriage was also because Crush didn't feel comfortable letting Rem ride a ground dragon alone in this condition. So she resolved to accompany her, at least until the capital is within their sights. Sensing Rem's unsettled look, Crush casually shrugged. Crush, compared to this.
She shook her head.
Crush, he has Wilhelm, Ferris, the elites of the expedition, and Ricardo's mercenary company, all there to assist him.
Besides, Anastasia must have predicted this turn of events. Even if the adversary's strength is a concern, I don't think there is any reason they would lose.
Rem, even so, I still can't help but selfishly worry. Crush, still can't remove the source of anxiety, huh?
When the obstacle is within you, it would be possible to improve yourself until it is overcome. But when it's about other people, it does become quite difficult. I am quite terrible at comforting people after all, my apologies.
Seeing Rem sink deeper into her worries, Crush realized she had misspoken and lowered her eyes. But seeing the always cold and formal Crush suddenly so out of character, Rem couldn't help but curl the corners of her lips into a smile. Crush, MN, that's good.
Seeing this, Crush nodded contently.
Crush, Natsuki Subaru said it before, a smile suits Rem better, doesn't it? Even though it sounded like it came out of nowhere, it wasn't an entirely stupid thing to say.
Rem, Crush-sama. You know, when you smile, you give off a completely different impression. You're usually stern, yet once you smile you become.
Crush, people do say that.
I can't say I'm not angry about it.
I guess just because I don't smile for no reason in front of people, I'm becoming rather unlovable. Rem wasn't sure whether to take that as a joke, but seeing Crush's gentle smile, her lips opened into a smile as well. Courageous and proud, to Rem, who had always been lacking confidence, Crush was an ideal woman. But of course, in Rem's heart, the highest honor was reserved for none other than her older sister, Ram.
Crush, ahead of their path is the witch cult.
Even though it was more or less expected considering Emilia's identity, until we know more about them, caution is necessary. Natsuki Subaru realizes this, but surely Lord Mathers has a plan as well? Rem, the depths of my master's mind, Rem couldn't possibly know.
Even if you ask me, I wouldn't be able to say.
Crush, that's harsh. Now that we're allies after all, a little information slipping around wouldn't be too bad.
Perhaps it was meant to distract Rem from sinking into negative thoughts again.
Indeed, it was thanks to Crush that Rem wasn't left alone with her worries.
Besides, Crush made a good point. A man such as Roswell L. Mathers must have had a grand plan for all this.
Surely Subaru's actions were all furthering his master's goals, while also at the same time recovering his lost reputation.
Or actually, with the slaying of the white whale, his reputation had already far surpassed what it was before.
Hero, Natsuki Subaru. To Rem, whose heart and future he had saved, this assessment is only a matter of course, and considering the bright future he has yet to create, it is also more than justified. And then, to be at the side of that radiant hero, a place he could occasionally turn to make sure that she was there, if only that place could hold her existence, then there is nothing else in the world Rem would wish for.
With this alone, she would be content.
When Subaru appears in her mind, Rem's heart is always full of turmoil.
It becomes warm, and perhaps calm. Yet somehow it also becomes full of pain, of anxiety, of longing and worry.
To give her heart at once so much happiness and so much suffering, only Subaru could do this to her. With a smile carved upon her lips, Rem's thoughts turn to her future, her and Subaru's future. Stealing a glance at the side of Rem's face, Crush exhaled a sigh of relief. Caressing the scabbard of her knight's sword with her fingers, her eyes stared in silence into the road ahead. Her thoughts were of the long path to the capital. Crush, H. Rem, .. Crush squinted her eyes. The same instant Rem heard a noise and raised her head. What Crush's eyes captured was something off about the dragon carriage up ahead.
The noise Rem heard came from the same direction. In fact, both clues were leading to the same conclusion. In Crush's eyes, the dragon carriage disintegrated.
In Rem's ears, the prelude to collapse echoed like the sound of raindrops.
A mist of blood sprayed out.
The image of the dragon carriage in front of them all of a sudden transformed into a pitiful blur. The ground dragon, the carriage, and all of the wounded inside were completely uprooted, and then shattered mercilessly by overwhelming devastation. Crush,
Enemy attack.
Her astonished throat delayed only an instant, before Crush bellowed out the rally call.
With Crush at the helm, the surrounding dragon carriages sensed the crisis and prepared for battle.
Rem, pushing away all sensations of injury and exhaustion and with her morning star in hand, stood up at once. On the other side of the blood mist was the upright shadow of a man. Who is that man, now burning into her sight, standing in the middle of the road?
Without weapon, without armor, without fear. Without compassion or malice or intent.
Crush over him. Crush's command came roaring from atop the driver's platform.
Hearing the command, the night driver snapped the reins in acknowledgement.
With a cry, the ground dragon led the carriage charging, with surging momentum capable of shredding any victim coming into contact.
Without deviation from the mark, it was a head-on collision into the upright figure. The man showed no intention of moving.
And just like that, the two objects touched, the slender body about to be ripped to shreds by the
Rem, Crush Summer. With this cry, Rem picked up Crush by the waist and flew off the side of the carriage.
There was no time to reach for the driver. Rem landed biting her lip, thinking this. And then, right after. Man, Arg, really?
Don't do that.
I didn't even do anything and someone wants to crush me to death.
Really, that isn't what people should be doing.
I don't think so. He spoke with the relaxed demeanor of a man leisurely walking in a park, or basking in the sun or some such situation. If it weren't for the shattered debris of what used to be the dragon carriage, Rem would not have found this scene to be so bizarrely horrifying. No matter how you look at it, the man doesn't seem anything out of the ordinary.
His body was slender, and his neat white hair was neither long nor short, nor particularly odd.
His black clothes were neither flamboyant nor shabby, and his face was not eye-catching at all. He looked so very ordinary that perhaps no matter where you put him he would not seem out of place, and if you met him on the street you'd forget him within 10 seconds. But the fact is, upon coming into contact with this man, the ground dragon was ripped in two, its feet still in mid-stride, and then, along with the driver and carriage, shattered into countless indiscernible pieces. The most frightening part is, though Rem never looked away, all she saw was this man merely standing there. Not doing anything, just by standing there the man survived collision with a charging dragon carriage, and still stood there as if it were nothing. Crush, thank you, Rem, for saving me.
But it seems the situation hasn't improved.
Still being carried in Rem's arms, Crush thanked her, stood back up, and in the same instant drew her knight sword from its sheath.
For the driver who followed her order and was shattered into 1,000 pieces as a result, Crush grieved his death in her heart and narrowed her eyes.
Crush, to so cruelly murder my subjects, do not think this will end so easily.
Who are you?
With her naked blade gleaming with the intent to kill, she threw these words at the man. Taking in these words, the man touched his chin and began nodding as if he understood. Man, I see, right, you don't know about me.
But I know about you. The whole capital. Actually, the whole country is talking about you. You are a candidate to be the next king, after all.
Even I, so out of touch with the world, can imagine what a great burden. Crush, idle talk ends now.
Answer my question, or the next time I shall slay you.
Man, that's really extreme.
But then you wouldn't be able to run a country otherwise. Yet this sentiment, I really don't understand it one bit.
This desire to wear the crown, and take up all those responsibilities, how can anyone understand it?
Even though I don't understand, I won't disagree with you. I'm not so arrogant as that, not one bit. Unlike you. Not paying any attention to Crush's demand, the man just kept on. And then.
Crush, as I said, that was the last chance. As Crush coldly pronounced these words, her arm swung out a blade of wind. Crush's wind magic combined with swordsmanship unleashes an invisible slash, renowned as the 100-Men Cut. It is a powerful ultra-long-range slash that can sever a man's body without him even knowing where, or who, it came from. Back then, when the Mabeast Great Rabbit appeared in the plains of the Carsten County, she slew all the Mabeasts under the Great Rabbit's command in her first ever battle, and it was that time onward Count Crush Carsten earned the name 100-Men Cut. Even the white whale's adamant skin was opened by this blade, as it played no small part in bringing down that colossal Mabeast. Compared to the white whale, this small, frail body could not possibly withstand.
Yet.
Man, attacking someone while they're talking, just where are your manners? Head tilted, as if flaunting how his body took no damage, the man just stood there. His existence was utterly unaffected by a slash that could rend even the white whale's armor. The man's body, no, even his clothes were unscathed.
He did not defend the attack.
Rather, it was something wholly different and unknown. Crush could not help but hold her breath, and Rem froze in place, after witnessing something so far outside the realm of understanding.
In front of them, the man sighed for the first time. Man, you know, he went on with a tone lowered by displeasure. Man, I was talking. Wasn't I talking just now? And then you interrupted me.
Isn't that a bit impolite? Don't you think that was wrong?
I have the right to speak.
Even though I don't really want to have to point this out, but to not interrupt people when they're speaking. Isn't that just common social decency? You're free to listen or not listen, I won't bother you about that, but just what are you trying to do by not letting me talk?
As he ranted, the man occasionally stomped the ground with a displeased expression on his face.
And just like this, he pointed his finger at the two in front of him, both now eerily speechless. Man, and now you're quiet, what is this?
You're listening.
You were listening, right?
Wasn't I asking you something?
Then give me some kind of reply, it should be like that, right?
You won't even do that, don't even want to. Freedom. That's your freedom.
You see me ranting and you want to kill me, then when I ask you a question, you ignore me like I'm the wind.
So it's like that, is it? Well, you're free to do that.
All right, let's just say it's like that.
But then, what is that supposed to mean?
Seeing the two standing silently in front of him bracing for an attack, he tilted his head and stared at them with his sharp eyes, and then, with a smothered voice. Man, you're disregarding my right, one of my only few possessions, right? Just as a chill ran up Rem's back, the man took a step forward.
His drooping arm lifted, sweeping up a small gust of wind.
Then, on the same line as the motion of his arm, the earth, the air, and the world parted in two. Round and round and round, Crush's severed left shoulder flew into the air. Still grasping onto the sheath of a knight's sword, the arm dropped down in a spray of blood. Crush, blown off her feet by the impact, fell to the ground, convulsing in pain and mass loss of blood.
Rem, Crush Summer.
Stunned for few seconds, Rem rushed to the side of the fallen Crush. She placed her hands on Crush's wound and with a small final remnant of her mana, applied all her power to stop the bleeding. Crush's shoulder flowed bright crimson, the flesh, bones, nerves and arteries were all perfectly severed. A clean and masterful attack, Rem sighed with a rather inappropriate admiration.
Crush, Ferris.
Oh.
You?
Under Rem's healing hands, Crush looked on with unfocused eyes, muttering indiscernibly, and, with her remaining right arm, grasped tightly onto Rem's knee.
Proof that she still possessed the strength to live.
Re-0 Arc 3 Interlude 2, to each, their oaths.
Lying on the bed, her expression was serene. To Subaru she looked like she was sleeping. Her lashes are so long.
He thought in a daze, gazing at her closed eyes. She'd usually make an effort to keep her face expressionless, but in her sleep, a softness befitting her age was showing on her cheeks.
Come to think of it, Subaru had never seen her asleep. She always woke before him, and slept after he did.
Subaru knew, to keep herself resolute, she had always tried to bury the childish side of her, but that stubborn facade had collapsed so many times before Subaru's eyes. Be it surprised, or embarrassed, pouting or about to cry, or after opening their hearts her smile gleaming under her tears, there should be so many chances to see them again. Rem. Even calling her name, caressing her soft, white cheeks, she made no response. On the bed, deep in her slumber, the maid's dress so familiar on her shoulders, the white headband that adorned her hair so blue and beautiful as the sky, were all gone. The attire she wore in her work, and in battle, she had no need for them now.
There you are.
In the room silent and stagnant as though time had stopped, someone called to Subaru. Slowly turning, as though reluctantly, he looked behind him. It was a young woman with long, softly swaying hair. She wore a simple yet elegant dark blue evening dress, and even as she walked toward him, she seemed overflowing with grace. But all her movements had a slightly muddled hesitation about them, which combined with the elegance of her person gave out a rather odd impression. Subaru cannot help but feel a sense of awkwardness when he is near her.
Long-haired girl, she. Subaru, still hasn't changed. Even though I can't do anything. I thought I could at least stay here with her. But that's such a cowardly thing to say. Long-haired girl, still, this would make her happy, wouldn't it?
Seeing Subaru's downcast expression, the woman timidly tried to console him.
But hearing this, Subaru shot back a stare at once fierce, bitter, and cruel, his senses sharpened at her words, his eyes locked onto hers. Without meaning to, it was already far beyond his control.
Noticing his reaction, the young woman placed her hands over her lips. I'm sorry, she apologized. Long-haired girl, I said something I shouldn't have, and hurt you, didn't I? Subaru, no.
No, I am the one who should apologize. I was only venting my anger all pent up inside.
If I behave like this, Rem will be really, really angry with me, won't she?
You shouldn't be hurting people's feelings like that, Subaru-kun, or something like that.
He shrugged, and said that softly in Rem's voice.
In his mind, he heard her voice saying those words. A voice only he could hear.
His impression sounded nothing like her, but there is not a person left in the world who could point that out. Against Subaru's empty words and gestures, the woman sadly lowered her eyes, and held her left wrist with her right hand. As if a shadow had descended between them, the room returned to silence.
This familiar feeling.
Natsuki Subaru shouldn't stay like this, should he?
Subaru shook his head in his heart.
To sink into the depths of an ocean of despair is easy, even if only so the piercing anguish would go away. But it doesn't suit him, as the man she believes in, as the man Rem loves above all the world. This is not what Natsuki Subaru should do.
Never.
Subaru, you were looking for me, then? Long-haired girl, yes, I want to hold a meeting with everyone present, so I've asked everyone to gather in the lounge, if it's all right with.
Nodding with an expression like she's just been saved, the woman got right to the point. But then she stopped halfway through, and furrowed her brows rather awkwardly. It took a while before Subaru noticed this. Subaru, my name is Natsuki Subaru.
Long-haired girl, I'm sorry, Natsuki Subaru-sama.
I will be sure to remember. Even though I've been told how much I am indebted to you. Please excuse me, my apologies.
Subaru, it can't be helped, can it?
There must a lot of things you need to remember right now, don't worry about it.
As if to say she was very, very sorry, the young woman lowered her head. Then, seeing her recover again with perfect grace, even femininity, Subaru cannot help but feel a sense of surreal incongruity stabbing at his chest. But even Subaru wasn't brash enough to say this out loud. Shaking his head, Subaru decided to put that aside for now, and stood up. Turning to the girl on the bed, he gently touched the hair on her forehead.
Subaru, I'll be back, Rem.
Breathing softly, she really exists.
Having been forgotten by all the world, this was her only remaining existence.
With Rem behind his back, Subaru turned to face the young woman. Subaru, the lounge is it?
Let's not make them wait, let's go.
Long-haired girl, yes, let's go, Natsuki Subaru-sama. Her head slightly inclining forward, softly smiling, she seemed at that moment like something out of a dream, her long, green hair, flowing with her every movement. Hating having to admit this, Subaru turned away, hiding a genuine smile emerging on his face. Subaru, thank you for coming to fetch me, Miss Crush. With this name, Subaru thanked the long-haired girl, who seemed to have become a different person entirely. By the time Subaru arrived in the capital, it was already over. His conversation with Emilia on the road were all gone from his mind. The girl sitting safely next to him, Subaru should feel content and relieved, having finally saved her.
But in the relentlessly galloping dragon carriage, the only thing on Subaru's mind was the other girl. Who is Rem? Looking confused, she tilted her head as she said this. He scrambled to look for the smallest hint of a joke, something in her voice, in her expression, hoping against hope the words "just kidding" would come out of her mouth. Whether it's Petra, or the other kids, no one remembered her. Having confirmed this fact with everyone on the carriage, Subaru commanded the driver to rush to the capital with all haste. On his face was the desperate expression of someone riding into death itself. Impossible. There must be a mistake. It was all going so well.
Everyone was saved, the objective was completed. Despite enduring so much pain and sorrow, taking so many scars within his heart that will never, ever heal, everything worked out in the end. And still. Aha! It's Subaru Canyon.
Impressive, Crush-sama, you managed to find that capricious little stray.
On the way to the lounge, seeing the two in the hallway, someone called out to them. Shaking around in a short dress, liberated from the night's garments, a pair of cat-like ears twitched. Ferris walked over to them and gently picked up Crush's hands.
Crush, Ferris-san. Ferris, I'm just Ferris.
Ferris and Crush Summer have known each other for a very long time, Nyan. If you still add a san to my name, I'm going to die of loneliness and despair, Nyan.
Holding up Crush hands in one hand, Ferris used the other to nudge Crush in the shoulder.
At such affectionate interaction, Crush looked like she wasn't sure what to do with herself, but essentially accepted it as it is, and with a, sorry, she lowered her head. Crush, to become just like before.
Even though it's not easy, I will try my best, Ferris.
Yes.
Just Ferris.
Ferris, it's all right, Nyan, because Ferris is always Crush Summer's companion, and will always stay by your side. And to be together with such a cute version of Crush Summer, Ferris will find even more reasons to fall for Crush Summer, Nyan. Just the thought of that makes Ferris happy, Nyan. Playfully swinging Crush's captured hands up and down, Ferris blew her a kiss. Watching them, the unease growing inside Subaru's heart became unbearable. Even though Crush had changed so drastically, Ferris treated her the same as always, and accepted her as always. It was something beyond what Subaru could understand. Inside that smile of Ferris, how much inner struggle must be lying within? Subaru doesn't know. Nonetheless, the thought of it alone filled him with sentiment. Ferris, Subaru Canyon, get in the lounge, Nyan. Emilia Summer and old man Wilhelm are waiting for us.
Subaru, A.R.
His thoughts must have added something into his voice, but Ferris didn't seem to notice.
Saying, this way, Crush Summer, Ferris led her by the hand.
In the subtle atmosphere between Subaru and Ferris, Crush tried to hide the uncertainty looming between her brows. She looked at them, one and then the other, and in the end not saying a thing, silently followed behind Ferris' steps. Taking a deep breath, Subaru bit his lips, and closed his eyes.
His mind was on edge. His heart felt desolate. In that state he didn't want to see anyone at all. But it can't be helped. He will not make excuses to comfort himself. Because the last thing he'd want to do, is to blame her for his pain.
This way, they made their long-overdue entry into the lounge. Noticing all eyes were on him, Subaru looked around the room. Other than himself, there were 4 people present, Emilia, Wilhelm, and one step before him, Crush and Ferris. Seeing he must be the last one, Subaru closed the door behind him, and ever so naturally sat down next to Emilia. Emilia, Subaru. Subaru, no problem. I've calmed down now, Emilia-tan, I am all right. To Emilia's worried call, Subaru light-heartedly retorted.
Only his eyes weren't looking at her.
Rather, he couldn't see her at all. If he met Emilia's eyes now, he would have revealed a despised part of himself.
The very thought of it filled him with uncontrollable dread. Ferris, now that everyone is here, let's begin. With the sound of a clap, everyone's attention landed on Ferris. It would be impossible for Crush to direct a meeting in her condition, so that task fell to Ferris.
Roughly surveying everyone present, Ferris walked to the front of the room with an arm in the air. Ferris, since there are no objections, Nyan, let's assess our situation. Thus, with a smile, a meeting from which everyone wanted something completely different, began. After the battle with the White Whale, on their way back to the capital, Rem, Crush, and the punitive expedition, bringing with them wounded soldiers and the whale's severed head, were ambushed by 2 Sin archbishops.
Half of the expedition perished.
The demi-human mercenaries accompanying them retreated immediately, and avoided annihilation. Ferris, when the Vice-Captain Hetaro brought the capital's knights back to the scene, the Sin archbishops were already gone, Nyan. Only our knights' bodies and Crush, people who were like me. Right? Crush furrowed her brows at Ferris' last few words, biting her lip.
With a dejected expression, she must have felt it was all her fault. To her, the Crush in Ferris' story might as well be referring to another person. Because
Crush, my memory was erased. By a Sin archbishop? Ferris, probably Nyan.
I've attended to the other patients with the same condition as Crush Summer.
Their memories are completely gone. There is nothing Ferris healing magic can do, Nyan.
Even now Ferris has no idea what the cause is. Wilhelm, Sin Archbishop, gluttony. This authority, it must be him. Wilhelm nodded gravely, and with a stern gaze he looked to Crush.
But, seeing Crush shrivel under his gaze, Wilhelm closed his eyes in apology.
Wilhelm, I was inconsiderate of Crush Summer's condition, and frightened you. I am deeply sorry. I still have much to learn.
Crush, no.
I should apologize for being such a useless master. Even though I am trying my hardest to remember everything about Wilhelm Summer.
Hearing Crush call him Wilhelm Summer, the old swordsman cringed. Seeing his sworn master suffering so, the guilt and shame of having failed to protect her brought pain onto Wilhelm's face. Glancing towards Subaru, who at this moment must be carrying the very same feeling in his heart, Wilhelm seemed to understand him.
On the other hand, Ferris, whose attitude toward Crush would not waver in spite of everything,
seemed to disregard Subaru's feeling completely.
Ferris, Sin Archbishop Sloth has been dealt with.
And Nyan, there's gluttony and greed. There is a limit to what can be done, Nyan. Something so rare as two Sin Archbishops moving together, I'd be surprised if Emilia Summer's rise has nothing to do with it. Emilia, me? Her name suddenly mentioned, Emilia looked at Ferris with a surprised expression.
Nodding to her, Ferris continued.
Ferris, the witches' cult will never tolerate the existence of a half-elf such as Emilia Summer. They are usually quiet and creep in the shadows, but now they're all suddenly making such a ruckus. There is obviously a connection here. Listening to Ferris' speculations, Subaru crossed his arms, and pondered on a conversation they had before. The night before the battle with the White Whale, when Subaru discussed with Ferris and Crush the possibility of a witch cultist attack, they had accepted his suspicions readily.
That means there must have been precedents.
Emilia, but
even though I don't know much about the witch cult.
The witch refers to the Witch of Envy, right? Raising her hand nervously, Emilia uttered this entirely unexpected question. Subaru doubted his hearing. Wilhelm and Ferris' expressions froze. The only people who weren't astonished by those words were Crush and Emilia herself.
Seeing their reactions, Emilia became even more nervous.
Emilia, sorry. I can tell from your reactions that that's something I should know, really, should. Subaru, but. Emilia Tan.
You know about the witch, you were the one who told me.
The first time they met, she had given him the name Satella, and then after he had died, he tried to call her by that name again.
His memory of her anger meant that she knew that name was forbidden. But Emilia shook her head at Subaru's words.
Emilia, near the forest where I lived there was a small village.
They hated me because of my likeness to the Witch of Envy. So I know how the witch is regarded in the world, but things like the witch cult.
Ferris, how Emilia Summer lived in the past, let's just put that aside for Nyan. But to say that you don't even know about the witch cult at this point is just too outrageous, Nyan.
Shoulders raised, as if mocking, Ferris' hands flung up with a sigh.
Seeing this attitude from Ferris, Subaru's anger rose, and staring into Ferris' eyes he retorted, Subaru, how can you say this?
To admit you don't know something, do you realize how much courage that takes?
To ask what is necessary, what is wrong with that? Ferris, Subaru Canyon is really persuasive, Nyan. You really are master and servant, Nyan. Ferris relentlessly mocking Subaru's unhidden displeasure. Subaru was about to stand up in anger, but.
Crush, Ferris. I cannot overlook what you just said.
Apologize at once.
The moment before Subaru's strength injected into his legs, the words of reproach rang out in the room.
In her dark blue evening dress, up to now frail and timid, she all of a sudden transformed, majestic and fierce. Her gaze was that of a knight. Crush, as Natsuki Subaru Summer said, to ask what you do not know, is nothing deserving of mockery.
Even you do not have that right. Understood?
Ferris, understood, Crush Summer. Her forceful words subsiding, Crush seemed to return to the soft-spoken girl of a moment before. But as if having heard something from the awe-inspiring Crush of the past, from this now frail and feminine girl, Subaru could not hold in his astonishment. Ferris, too, could not contain the shock within his eyes. Ferris, Emilia Summer, Please accept my apology for my rudeness. Subaru Canyon 2.
Subaru, no, it's fine. Then, let's talk about the witch cult now.
Emilia Tan wants to hear it.
And to be honest, I don't know the details either.
Seeing Subaru back down, half giving up, Ferris light-heartedly replied with understood Nyan.
A finger lightly touching the lower lip, Ferris shook around in the short dress.
Ferris, firstly, as Emilia Summer said, the witch cult is an organization that worships the Witch of Envy. Ever since the unstoppable rise of the witch 400 years ago, these fanatics have been active. To the Knight's Order, all affiliates of this organization are to be killed on sight.
Emilia, killed on sight.
To carry out such extreme orders, how could they? Ferris, the witch cultists will not hesitate to burn a village or an entire city just to accomplish their goals. In fact, the village near Lord Roswell's mansion came close to falling victim to these cultists, and one of the Sin archbishops that took part in the ambush had once managed to single-handedly capture a city and the Empire of Valakia in the south. Emilia kept on blinking her eyes, as if unable to take in these facts. Subaru understands her reaction, because the horrors of the witch cult had already been carved deep into his heart.
He now uses Beetlejuice as the standard unit of measurement for insanity. But in terms of strength, greed sounds like something on a completely different level than Beetlejuice.
Ferris, wait, I'm getting sidetracked. Nyan. The witch cult Sin archbishops, each named after one of the 6 sins, other than envy, are the executives of the organization. Emilia, the 6 witches were sloth, greed, gluttony, lust, wrath and pride, right? Ferris, yes, and especially well known among them are sloth and greed. Greed, as previously mentioned, is known for annihilating entire cities. Sloth, on the other hand, seemed to be behind every little disturbance caused by the witch cult. But sloth has already been beautifully eliminated by our punitive expedition Nyan. Right, Subaru Canyon?
Subaru, yes. Sloth is dead.
I saw him disintegrate with my own eyes, there is no mistaking it. Subaru confirmed Ferris' words, his mind playing back the final moments of the abominable Beetlejuice,
screaming Subaru's name, full of hatred. Even long afterward, the sound would not leave his ears. Like a curse, it kept on howling. Was that the reason behind Subaru's cruel fate?
Ferris, there are now 5 remaining Sin archbishops.
2 of them were responsible for the ambush on Crush Summer.
Their movements are always mysterious, and so even after 400 years the efforts to eradicate them barely made any progress.
As to their objective, it is said that they want to revive the Witch of Envy.
Subaru, revive the witch? Unable to disregard these words, Subaru jumped up, tipping over his chair. Noticing this gave the girls a fright, Subaru waved his hands up and down.
Subaru, to revive her.
Is that even possible? The witch has been dead for 400 years, right?
To make something like that come back to life.
Wilhelm, Subaru Dono, the Witch of Envy is not dead.
Her life is still linked to the edge of this world. Unfortunately.
To the agitated Subaru, Wilhelm quietly revealed this fact. Speechless, Subaru looked to Wilhelm, and met his eyes, serious and severe. Wilhelm, near the Great Fall, there is a sealing stone temple. The witch is there, her indestructible existence sealed inside.
For even with the power of the dragon and the sword saint combined, she cannot be destroyed.
Subaru, sealed.
I might have heard that before. But to revive her, why don't they just destroy the seal?
Where did Subaru hear that before?
But more importantly is the question.
If the witch was sealed, they merely need to break the seal, but instead, every time a half-elf appears they wreak havoc in the world with senseless murder and destruction.
Just what is the witch cult trying to do? But at this question, Wilhelm shook his head. Wilhelm, to approach the temple is almost impossible.
First, there is very little mana near the Great Fall. Under those circumstances, no one can withstand the witch's scent.
Secondly, they cannot bypass the Elder Sages.
Subaru, Elder Sages? Ferris, the Elder Sage Shaula, and the first-generation Sword Saint, and the Dragon Volcanica, were the heroes who sealed the Witch of Envy Nyan.
Then they retired to the Pleiades watchtower near the Great Fall.
But retired in name only. Even now, they keep their watch, for those who would revive the witch.
That is, as the story goes. Subaru, they must be quite old. 400 years is quite a long breath, even for sages. But that is besides the point. Subaru decided to set that aside so Ferris could continue.
Subaru, well, now we know why the witch can't be unsealed, but then how do they revive her? Ferris, even if you ask Nyan, Ferris isn't a witch cultist and doesn't know either. All we can do is torture a witch cultist and have them spit it out. Nyan.
Brushing off Subaru's question, Ferris took on an I give up expression.
Even though Subaru wasn't satisfied, there was no point pursuing the question further. In any case, Emilia nodded. Emilia, so that's
why I'm treated like this. But why didn't Puck? Subaru, did Puck say something just now? There is a mountain of things I need to ask him.
Emilia, Puck didn't respond.
Even though he seems to have materialized. I only know he's nearby.
Seeing Emilia shriveling in her seat, it did not even occur to Subaru to say there. In fact, to talk to Puck is something he absolutely must do. Besides, there is no way to predict where or when Sin Archbishop Greed will appear.
Puck's input will also be crucial.
Ferris, that's all there is to say about the witch cult Nyan.
So on top of that, let's move the discussion to the future.
Subaru, the future? Turning to Subaru with a clap, Ferris, with a jubilant smile, said. Ferris, to put it simply, this alliance.
Let's dissolve it, Nyan. The atmosphere in the lounge froze. Only Subaru's mind was heating up. Taking in those words, he pondered a moment, quietly licking his lips.
Subaru, dissolve the alliance?
What are you trying to say?
Ferris, exactly what it sounds like, Nyan. As things are right now, our alliance will not be mutually beneficial, Nyan. Perhaps because Subaru kept his composure, Ferris' expression revealed a touch of admiration. Rather annoyed by Ferris' expression, Subaru wondered if Ferris was setting up the alliance as a bargaining chip to gain an advantage in the negotiation. The more he thought, the more he commanded himself to keep calm. But even so, his head was nearly boiling. Subaru, mining rights aside, we coordinated our efforts to defeat the White Whale, and after everything is done, now you want to back out after reaping the benefits?
That's a bit scandalous no matter how you look at it.
Ferris, more detriment than benefits, Subaru Canyon.
Subaru, ah?
Compared to Subaru's aggressive attitude, Ferris went on casually, wagging a finger. Ferris, Nyan?
Gluttony and greed appearing together, for starters.
After killing Sloth, an alliance with Emilia Summers' camp will only make us targeted by the witch cult.
Considering what happened to Crush Summer, do you still believe it's in our interest to form an alliance right now?
Subaru, that is.
Glancing toward the completely different Crush, Subaru hesitated to counter Ferris' argument. Because deep in his heart, he was carrying the same wounds.
This time, it wasn't Subaru who refuted Ferris' words.
Wilhelm, I disagree, Ferris.
Leaning forward in his seat, Wilhelm's stern gaze stared into Ferris' eyes. Ferris, eyelids narrowed, let out an, "Eh?"
with a thin smile.
Ferris, what do you mean, Nyan? After what Gluttony did to Crush Summer, what do you think is the benefit of an alliance that will draw the witch cult to us? Wilhelm, to kill Gluttony, an opportunity to avenge our master. Ferris, vengeance? Is that more important to you than Crush Summer's life? Against Wilhelm, Ferris refused to give ground.
Weighing heavily on both their minds, were thoughts of their master. Ferris, if we continue to deal with the witch cult, this disaster will only repeat again.
Crush Summer right now can't even protect herself.
When that day comes. If it's physical wound or emotional wound, Ferris can heal you. But if you die, it's all over, isn't it?
Wilhelm, but we cannot remain idle while the offender roams free. Crush Summer's memories. When we defeat the Sin Archbishop, there is a chance they will return. To give up this early is far too rash. Ferris, defeating that bastard will bring the memories back? I say, Wilhelm, to think lost memories can be brought back by killing the thing that ate it.
Are you daydreaming, or do you think this is some kind of fairy tale?
Wilhelm, Felix. With an ear-splitting roar, the swordsman's aura resounded in the room. As if a gust of wind had swept in, was the sensation felt by everyone present.
All wincing from the shock, only Wilhelm's keen gaze remained intact. Wilhelm, Felix. What you said just now. Never utter it again in front of Subaru Dono. Ferris, I'm sorry. Called by his true name, twice, Ferris closed his eyes with grief and remorse.
The others turned their eyes to Subaru, who was already sitting once more. His hands clenched tightly, faintly trembling, blood seeped through the gaps between his fingers, as if about to cover them whole.
Subaru, Emilia Tan. Emilia, don't worry.
I won't say anything like I understand or it's all right, even though I want to understand how you feel.
That forgotten child.
Because I don't understand anything, no matter what I say, it won't be fair to you. Subaru looked up, into Emilia's violet pupils that flickered with sadness.
In her eyes he saw a reflection of himself, in all his weakness.
Is that the Natsuki Subaru she sees? As if saved by that tender regard, Subaru shook his head. Subaru, to say something like it's all right, even if I rip my mouth apart right now I won't be able to say it.
But I am fine. Ferris, don't worry about it.
I will not give up, as long as there is the tiniest fragment of hope left. Ferris, really Nyan? Subaru Canyon sure doesn't like to give up. Watching Subaru trying to act like he was fine, Ferris' countenance broke down into a smile.
But his position remained unchanged.
Ferris, as for Ferris Nyan, I don't agree that we should continue the alliance.
I will return Crush Summer to herself, just watch.
So something like vengeance against gluttony, we should just set that aside for Nyan.
Wilhelm, what we should do, and how. Crush Summer, you must decide. It is not in our position to do it. In the end, it all falls on her. Both their eyes focused upon her, and Crush, as if understanding, nodded.
Crush, there is still plenty that I do not know.
And what I was before, I cannot remember. I want to tell you now, that it will be disorienting, being around me.
But even so, I thank you for placing in me your esteem and trust.
And if I could, I want to live up to that expectation. For that, I shall try my best.
Despite losing her memory, it seemed her strength of character remained. Just what is the core essence of a person? Seeing Crush like this once more, even after forgetting everything she knew, Subaru could not help but ask himself that question.
But as to the alliance, there is no better choice than to put the negotiations on hold for now.
Ferris, in any case, if the one who holds all the key information concerning Emilia Summer's faction, Margrave Roswell, isn't present, then there is nothing we can do, Nyan. So for our next negotiation, let's hold it on the condition that the Margrave be in attendance. Crush, yes, that is for the best.
Then this meeting,
Ferris, will be a secret, so pretend it was about something other than an alliance, Nyan. Ferris shot a sharp glance at Subaru, saying this in an unusually low voice. Subaru swallowed, but seeing no reason to disagree, he nodded.
From their perspective, this decision made sense.
If Crush's current condition is known to the public, her status as the most competent candidate will vanish. In fact, the repercussions of Crush's amnesia becoming public knowledge is of the same magnitude as the prestige of slaying the white whale.
It is for precisely this reason that Anastasia wasn't invited to this meeting.
Ferris, regardless of Julius, Anastasia will certainly use this information to her advantage.
Good thing Crush Summer's condition hasn't been seen by those kids of hers.
Crush. She will be present at the victors' negotiations. What do we do about that? Ferris, we can make an excuse and say you're unwell.
Ferris will think of something.
As for Subaru Canyon, your side just need to keep this secret, understood? Requesting only silence, Ferris would not allow any further entanglement between their two factions.
Subaru, noticing this, only nodded.
In the end, the meeting concluded without any progress whatsoever. Acknowledging the desperation of their situations, more than anything else, the two factions are aligned in the uncertainty of their futures. Subaru, thank you for back there, Wilhelm-san. After the meeting in the lounge, Subaru called out to Wilhelm outside the Karsten mansion. Stopping in his steps, Wilhelm turned to Subaru.
Wilhelm, not at all. I was of no help. I'm ashamed of how deficient I am.
Above all, I was unable to assist you today. Subaru, don't say that. Without Wilhelm-san, we wouldn't have defeated the White Whale. And afterward I was able to entrust Emilia and the villagers to you.
I am really, really grateful.
These were unpackaged, genuine words of gratitude. But, even this could not lift the gloom from Wilhelm's face.
Never forgetting a past kindness, always carrying the pain of others within himself. This man. Isn't he too good-natured for his own good? Subaru smiled at the thought.
Subaru, even though the situation hasn't settled yet, have you had a chance to visit your wife's grave?
Even though it's no consolation, but at least you avenged.
Wilhelm, dash. At Subaru's words, Wilhelm's face suddenly collapsed with deep emotion. Seeing those intertwined waves of grief and sentiment, Subaru didn't know what to do.
Noticing Subaru's hesitation, Wilhelm bowed deeply.
Wilhelm, Subaru Dono, I must apologize. Subaru, wait, don't be like this, you have nothing to be sorry about, I should be thanking you right now. Wilhelm, no, that is not true. The words I spoke in the meeting were not out of genuine desire to be your ally.
It was my vain, selfish sentiment that made me support the alliance. For concealing my guilt, I am deeply ashamed. Not understanding Wilhelm's words, Subaru furrowed his brows.
Seeing this, Wilhelm took off his overcoat, and rolled up his left sleeve, revealing a bandaged wound around his left shoulder.
Through the outer cloth one could see that the inner layers are wet with blood.
Subaru, does it hurt?
You should get Ferris to look at that. Wilhelm, this wound cannot be healed. It was dealt by an opponent who possessed the divine protection of Death God.
Subaru, can't be healed?
Then, Wilhelm-san.
What an unhealable wound leads to, even Subaru knows this.
Normally, if bleeding can't be stopped, it's like a timer being set on one's life.
But unlike Subaru, who looked full of apprehension, Wilhelm shook his head calmly.
Wilhelm, my life is not in danger right now.
Subaru, how can that be?
That wound. What kind of attack? Wilhelm, I did not receive this wound today, or yesterday. It was from a long time ago, and it recently reopened.
But, for me right now, the wound is too large. Listening to Wilhelm's quiet words, Subaru's small body quivered and contracted. Not knowing why he is having this reaction, even the roots of his teeth felt like they didn't fit in his jaw.
All this came from the sword demon in front of him, an incredible aura that could freeze one's liver solid, continuing in his calm, gentle voice. Wilhelm, the effects of a divine protection become stronger when the owner of the divine protection is near.
When Death God's owner approaches, the wounds they inflicted will open.
Subaru, then that means the person who inflicted your wound long ago is near. Wilhelm, the one who wounded my left shoulder, is the previous generation sword saint.
Listening to Wilhelm, Subaru's breathing stopped. Gazing into Wilhelm's eyes, he saw the frozen glitters of emotion. Wilhelm, Theresia van Astria.
The wound dealt by my wife has reopened. In order to find out why, I must continue to pursue the witch cult. Lost in a daze, Subaru stepped into the room where Rem was sleeping. Ever since returning to Crush's mansion, whenever there is a chance, he would come to stay with her. Even though he knew it would not happen, somewhere in his heart, in his weakness, he hoped she could just wake up. In this state, he no longer had the courage or the will to face Emilia. Being Emilia, perhaps she would understand after all. If she was by his side now, It will only bring her pain.
Unless Subaru looked for her, she would give him time to himself, even though she couldn't stop worrying. If Emilia was here, he'd probably cry, if only to comfort that weakness within his heart.
Though he hated that weakness, he could not cut it from himself.
Rem. Even though you told me I'm strong, without you with me, I can't find it, Rem.
I can't. Nothing changed from when he left for the lounge. Softly breathing. Her heart was beating. But other than this, there was not a single sign of life.
Right now, only Subaru's heart still carries her existence.
But... Subaru, it's you. Which wind blew you here?
Puck, me being here, is that so strange? Even I had some kind of relationship with this girl before, right?
Then occasionally coming here, what's wrong with that?
Subaru, where do you get the nerve? Gently touching Rem's sleeping forehead, Subaru glanced to his side. Floating in the air, was a small grey cat wagging his long tail, looking at him. At the meeting he was nowhere to be found, yet he showed up here.
Noticing Subaru's severe glance, Puck seemed taken aback.
Puck, why are you looking at me like that?
Did I do something?
Subaru, right now, you didn't do anything. Go find Emilia, as long as you go float around somewhere else. Puck, is that so?
That's a curious thing to say. Even though my freedom isn't restricted, if that child gets in trouble while I'm not there.
Flicking his whisker, Puck murmured leisurely.
Then, floating up to Subaru's face.
Puck, but I think it's better that I talk to Subaru right now. Subaru, acting like you know everything, it's really pissing me off. Subaru turned his gaze away.
Even so, Puck silently waited for him.
Subaru sighed, even though meekly following along annoyed him. Subaru, you didn't tell Emilia about the witch cult.
What are your intentions?
Puck, no intention at all. If some things you can live without knowing, then not knowing is fine too. If Leah asked me, I would have told her, but she didn't ask. People like that, if you just avoid them then it doesn't matter, right? Subaru, yes, there are times when it's fine to not know some things. But this is totally not the case for Emilia, is it? That girl came out of the forest, to become king. She is fighting to win the royal selection.
There is no way to avoid the witch cult like that. You know this, of course you know this.
Pressing low his voice, Subaru pursued Puck's intentions. But Puck, wobbling in the air, easily dodged Subaru's vigorous questions. Puck, the witch cult appearing.
I suspected it too. But whether I would convey that to Leah is a completely different matter.
Subaru, even if it meant endangering her, and everyone else around her. I don't know what you're thinking, but if things went the way they were, Emilia would have dash. Puck, I see.
You did all this to save Leah. This child too.
She sacrificed herself to help her.
In that case I really need to thank this child.
Subaru, dash. In that instant, disregarding all the world, Subaru threw his punch. At the spirit in front of his eyes, without a trace of hesitation, he swung with all his might. The spirit, easily avoiding his strike, washed its face with astonishment. Puck, what are you doing, all of a sudden? Subaru, don't you dare touch Rem.
Not with your hands, or your words. Surprised himself, his voice broke quietly. The emotions brewing in his heart, perhaps they became too impossible to bear. With his round eyes, Puck gazed deep into Subaru, and with an, I understand, he stretched his little body. Puck, I said something inconsiderate, sorry, I shouldn't have said it. Instead of this, let's talk a bit about gluttony. Subaru, talk? What will that do now? Puck, if you learn the nature of the thing that ate this girl's name and memory, perhaps there is hope of fulfilling your wish, after all. Jumping at those words, Subaru's face flung up. Seeing this reaction, Puck nodded, then he turned up his small pink nose as if searching for a memory. Puck, gluttony's authority, to put it simply, is eating. When he eats a person's name, all memories about this person is taken, and when he eats a person's memory, that person's own memories are taken. If both are taken, then the person becomes an empty shell. An empty shell won't do anything, and could not do anything. This girl's condition is just that.
Subaru, name, memory. Crushes memory.
Rem's memory and name. Such is the effect of gluttony's authority.
Subaru, after killing the Sin Archbishop Gluttony, will the memories return?
Puck, what would happen? Throw up everything that's been eaten. Even though I don't like to think about it, is that something that can be done? You'll need to ask the man himself.
Subaru, but the possibility exists, doesn't it? Rem's memories, the possibility of retrieving Rem's memories. Turning back.
Rem is still deep in her slumber. Still softly breathing, her heart was beating.
Her body is still alive, only her memory, and her name, were eaten by a fiend. Subaru, Sin Archbishop Gluttony, I will absolutely annihilate you. Puck, even though I still think it's not that simple. Puck's last few words didn't enter Subaru's mind. Subaru, right now, is defending that final fragment of hope like the very last bastion in his heart. When he arrived in the capital, he found Rem after the attack, and when he knew all was lost, without a shred of hesitation, Subaru stabbed a dagger into his own throat.
What he felt at that moment, he could no longer remember.
Everything had turned out so perfectly, so perfect beyond everyone's expectations, but the truth is, throwing it all away in that instant, none of it mattered to him. If he lost Rem, if it meant walking into a future without her, no matter how many times he must endure that pain, he will dash. Only this, Subaru clearly remembers. Penetrating his throat, in blood, pain, searing heat, and loss, he lost all consciousness.
When he woke, what he saw was Rem lying in a bed. The save point had moved forward. The place of return had changed. Subaru saw hell, and only hell.
Again.
It must be some mistake, he must kill himself again. But Subaru hesitated. He was not afraid of pain or death. But he realized. Even if he returned to the previous save point, he could not save her.
At the save point before the battle with Beetlejuice, after the battle with the White Whale, Subaru and Rem had already went in separate directions for several hours. It is too late to catch them before the ambush.
But even if he could, Emilia will be abandoned.
And even if he sent the expedition to Emilia with the plan and rushed to the ambush, how will he defeat two Sin Archbishops? To defeat Beetlejuice, Subaru's presence is indispensable, and Emilia's escape cannot be managed without Wilhelm's protection. To sacrifice Emilia to save Rem, or to sacrifice Rem to save Emilia without sacrificing one or the other, he couldn't save anyone at all. Faced with this impossible choice, Subaru lowered the dagger from his throat. Unlike being erased by the White Whale's mist, though forgotten by all the world, Rem's body remains here. Beside her, unable to do anything, he merely sat there in a daze.
But that time spent in cruel futility ends here. It ends now. Holding Rem's sleeping hand, Subaru confirmed his resolve. Of one thing he is certain. I will. Subaru, retrieve. Rem, I promise. I will retrieve your memories. It was a promise. That right in front of your eyes, the man you fell in love with, will become the greatest hero the world has ever seen. We are still halfway on that path, aren't we? Subaru, I promise. Your hero will come for you. Wait just a little longer. Lifting his face, teeth bared. It was a declaration of war. The fiends shall regret the day they laid hands on what is sacred and inviolable.
For I, Natsuki Subaru, shall bring punishment upon you.
Subaru, I will, I promise I will.
In the days starting from 0, I can no longer endure a single one without the thought of you by my side.
So I must retrieve.
The days that are lost, the days I have walked with you, and all the days I will walk with you again. With my own hands, I swear I will take it back once more. Arc 3 Interlude 3 End equals.
This marks the end of Act 3. Act 4 takes place on Season 2 of the show.